Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis. This show is a series that has been coming to you from DCTV since 2015 in a weekly program called the Network of Global Corporate Control. Today's program is live and is called Closing the Bank for International Settlements. Thank you to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, studio producer, Dolores Harris is our floor director, Cruchet Starnes is on audio, and Maurice Jackson is on prompter. We're in Studio A today, which is why we have a bigger crew. The National Guard, after I wrote to the 50 adjutants general of the 50 states, Frank Grass resigned as chair of the National Guard. As treasonous, corrupt brass in the military are exposed, they fall. In the last segment, I asked, do you think anyone in the U.S. military might remember that Major General Michael Carey, former commander of the 20th Air Force, and also former Vice Admiral Tim Giardina were fired for refusing to nuke Charleston? Or that Heather Cole was fired after she prevented a first nuclear strike against Russia in 2015? The United States military answered this question on the 27th of June in the form of a flyby and a military salute in the skies above my home. They were flying low enough for me to see and hear plainly the huge military aircraft. I acknowledged this salute on the 1st of July when I tweeted, "The Air Force shows me flybys every time I walk out of my house." I tweeted this, and the U.S. military has not denied the truth of what I'm telling you now. Speaking from the heart, in the link I also said, who is in control? The answer, you are, and you're working with the rest of the world. It's going to take us some time to make things the way we want them, but there's no denying that we are the ones in charge. I've been giving you documents and reading from paperwork on this series. As a matter of fact, some people asked me to get right to the action and stop boring them. If you want to ignore all the paperwork, that's fine, but I'm just saying, if you want to know the most important document to look at, it's one that I'm showing you in the teleprompter. I sent it to the Director General of the Universal Postal Union, the International Bureau. I followed the steps to settle the question, who is in control? The powers that were, the ones who were claiming that they were in charge, they're not. We are. They got mad at me and tried to kill me, and they're doing everything in their power to keep you from listening to me. I'm still alive, and I'm still getting through. That should tell you something. Last Saturday, I showed you some fake paperwork from someone who I blocked as a liar. They were claiming that an imposter, Russell J. Gould, was Postmaster General of the United States, and also that he was director of the planet Earth. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. This episode is called Closing the Bank for International Settlements. The Bank for International Settlements, or BIS, is the name of the group of central banks who print your paper money and who are responsible for much of the world's corruption. In an early DCTV episode, I told you that the conference that began the World Bank and IMF in 1944 voted to close the Bank for International Settlements. That is what we, together with the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, are doing now. I got my information about how the conference that began the World Bank and IMF voted to close the BIS from Valentin Katasanov, who's an eminent Russian economist. Katasanov is critical of the Russian central bank, and Katasanov writes about the role of gold as real money, Katasanov wrote a study dealing with new documents that confirm the organization of the Second World War by US and UK bankers. Katasanov has written that World War II was started by President Franklin Roosevelt and Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain in the hope of destroying the Russians. The war was not unleashed by frenzied Führer who happened to be ruling Germany at the time. World War II was a project created by the world oligarchy or Anglo-American money owners. We call this group the Network of Global Corporate Control. We know that it's the bloodline families that go back to the times of the ancient pharaohs in Egypt that direct the network of global corporate control. This group used the United States Federal Reserve System and the Bank of England to prepare for the world conflict right after World War I. The USSR was the target. This information comes from Katasanov. Quote, the Bretton Woods Conference, formerly known as the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference, was the gathering of 730 delegates from all 44 allied nations at Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The United States was there to regulate the international monetary and financial order after the conclusion of World War II. This is the conference that started the World Bank and IMF. The conference was held from the 1st to the 22nd of July in 1944. All of a sudden, the issue of the Bank of International Settlements hit the agenda. It was reported that the bank collaborated with fascist Germany. Leaving many details aside, I'd only mention, that's Katasanov speaking, that with great difficulty, some United States delegates opposed the motion. The delegates reached an agreement to close the BIS. The decision of the International Conference has never been enacted. All the discreditable information related to the BIS wartime activities was classified. Today, it helps to falsify the history of the Second World War. And I tweeted about this last week. And I said, the United States minus the Federal Reserve Bank has always existed. We have also learned that the World Bank and IMF were started to regulate the world's monetary gold reserves and other wealth. The wealth was deposited and kept secret for 50 years so that at the end of the 50 years, all other claims to that wealth would be cut off under the statute of limitations. As the lawyer for the world's wealth, I've been telling the banking cartel and others that their claims to the world's wealth are invalid. I'll show you just 2 examples of the many different times that the banking cartel has tried to steal back the world's wealth. This was at the end of March. Interpol got into the act. I'm not arrested by Interpol, am I? This is because there's a coalition that's stronger than the banking cartel. I speak for this coalition. The world's wealth remains safe in the global debt facility and continues to be administered by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. Warning the Committee of 300 and the pharaonic bloodline families that they're behind the Committee of 300 and their efforts would be fruitless. And you can see in the teleprompter where I tweeted that. What's going on now is that we, the group that's really in charge, are having a conversation. The banking cartel has nothing to say in this conversation. That's because they're bankrupt and we're winding them down. But they're trying to butt in just to confuse you. We're going to learn from all that's happened before to tell what's real from what's fake. And we're going to fix things. That is what we're calling the global currency reset. It's important for people to know that we're all working together. In the Tao Te Ching, when the master has accomplished her task, the people say, "Amazing, we did it all by ourselves." Do you remember in the last life segment when I told you about the hippocampus and that we're all transcendent beings? This is what I meant. Occupy Wall Street says Hudis's story is easily the most interesting compared to major financial scandals, surveillance, etc. The American public, indeed the whole world, would unify with an understanding of a rigged world for a few. I'm working with a very large coalition that includes the world's militaries. This coalition, called the Coalition for the Rule of Law, was predicted with 90 to 95% accuracy from a power transition model that came to the World Bank in 2004 from the United States National War College. I've been telling you recently that humanity has to do with the fact that a critical mass of people, reality has to do with the fact that if people understand that something's true, it becomes manifest in reality. This is a scientific fact that has to do with the way humanity is all interconnected in the way we think. Our brains function as modems in processing our thoughts. Scientists observed this collective unconscious in Japan in what they call the 100th monkey effect. This is because information in the collective unconscious becomes accessible to everyone and is transmitted to everyone. I broadcast the evidence in my social media when the banking cartel tried to intimidate me on the 24th of January in 2018, and again on February 1st, 2018, when the banking cartel tried to ignore the bilateral Minesfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement governing the world's wealth in the global debt facility. This would have put the entire world into World War III. We're now in a global currency reset to end the corruption and clarify reality to the duped. Many people are duped by the secret corruption. A critical mass of people see the reality. We're now in transition to clean up the secret corruption. I'm just following up for the two main heroes who planned the cleanup of corruption, Jose Rizal and Ferdinand Marcos. They were the ones who put the world's wealth in a trust for the world's people at the end of World War II. That's what they did when they established the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. This was to create a co-op of the world's people, and so that we could all work together peacefully to end the corruption. And that's what we're doing now. We call the cleanup to end the corruption the global currency reset. That's because the corruption is in the world's money system. And in the teleprompter, you'll see that there's a person named Typo who was asking me, what 3 steps would I like for you all to do? What's the first step? And so I thanked that person. Thank you for asking this question. The first thing to do is to keep an open mind. I devoted the segment on what can we people do to help to answer this question. Please see the teleprompter for links. I uploaded the segment on YouTube. You should also get a study group of at least 3 people together. This is for your own protection. These people are going to signal to you when you're acting out of character. This will help you become aware of military scalar and electromagnetic frequency weaponry. And this weaponry is very real. It was referred to by Poland's Minister of National Defense. And in the teleprompter, you can see a link where he referred to it. And I've also got a link to the patents for the electromagnetic frequency weaponry. You need to work together to figure out what's actually going on as opposed to lies. Develop your critical thinking. Then work with local merchants in your villages and towns to create local currencies. Stay informed during the global currency reset. Form a small group, fight corruption in your local community, and help introduce local currencies. And then somebody named Joanna had a comment in YouTube about the 100 monkey effect. She said, "We're not monkeys. Humans possess a soul, a spirit, and a body. This is reality, part of the divine plan of the Creator who informs those of his true believers. No one need teach us, as no one teaches the cuckoo bird. It has not been taught to lay its egg in another bird's nest, as it was an egg and has never even seen its real parent. The 100 monkey hypothesis is bunk. Or it perhaps only works with monkeys and people who live according to the flesh. God teaches us and informs his children. What we are here for is to help one another. We have the 2 great commandments that the Savior brought onto the world. This is our mandate. This is reality. It's my wish for good on earth and all righteous people to prevail. But we are here today and gone tomorrow, but for our children. Eternity is forever. Earthly riches to the point of greed and manipulation of others is evil. As we leave this life on earth, not even with 1 penny. There's real wealth in loving the Creator, the Savior, and each other. The only thing we will be held accountable for, that is the true reality, and what I said to Johanna Kanata. I called her out for being a YouTube sock puppet. We're focusing on cleaning up the corrupt money system before discussions about religion to avoid the banking cartel's divide and conquer agenda. You're also denying that the banking cartel uses man's collective unconscious in electromagnetic scalar weaponry. The banking cartel has still not figured out that its sock puppet strategy only reinforces my message. Once the banking cartel is no longer secret, that's what happens. This is how we can tell that the dominoes are falling before our very eyes. I see from my YouTube channel that the banking cartel's disinformation agents are spreading lies about the global currency reset. Don't be confused by the banking cartel's agents. I'm the spokesperson for the global currency reset. All the others are trying to derail the global currency reset by spreading banking cartel disinformation. Banking cartel, the coalition for the rule of law that I speak for, is very real, and it's much stronger than the banking cartel. You're only starting to see how we're all working together. You'll see a lot more. Stay tuned. This is one of the main reasons it's taking us a while to get the global currency reset going, and it's the biggest reason for the delay. We're not going to be disorganized so that the corruption coming from the banking cartel allows our wealth to be stolen. Don't think because I'm the spokesperson that your role and all of humanity's role is being undermined. Everything that happens in the global currency reset is subject to review by decentralized humanity. That's how you know that we're not the New World Order. Stay tuned. Going forward, your questions will all be answered and the confusion will lift. What we're doing, ending such deep corruption, has never been done before. We're going to do this global currency reset peacefully and with love. That's another way that you know that it's very real, because it fits who we really are. And now I'm going to speak off the top of my head, because some people were saying that they didn't find me as convincing when I'm reading from the teleprompter. So I made a couple of notes. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to tell you about the warplane that I saw flying low in the sky over my head. And I called that a flyby. When I wrote that in the teleprompter, people were hacking into my computer. They didn't want me to call it a flyby. They didn't want me to call it, I'm sorry, we're having a little bit of confusion. People are trying to tell me how much time I have to speak extemporaneously. So what I saw over the skies was not just a huge military plane, and I tried to show you in a tweet what the plane looked like, so I knew that it was military. It wasn't like any of the commercial aircraft I've ever seen. And it was flying very, very low in the sky. And then right after that, there were at least 6 helicopters speeding across the sky with flashing lights. This was a flyby. And it was a signal to me to let me know that the U.S. military understands very well that the people in the Joint Chiefs of Staff are really working for the banking cartel. And I've received emails from other people in the military saying that at least 70% of the U.S. military is on our side. So what we're doing is we're peacefully asserting ourselves and organizing ourselves. And as long as we know that there are enough people aware of what we're doing, working together, there isn't going to be anything bad to happen to us. You'll see a lot of scare tactics, people talking about crashing of markets. The world's wealth is very real. It was put into the World Bank and IMF so that there would be an organized group to deal with that wealth. And I'm the spokesperson for the Board of Governors. I vote the U.S. shares on the Board of Governors. And this is just a stopgap measure. I don't pretend to be representing you. I'm just holding a place for you as you reorganize yourself in decentralized villages and towns. And this is going on all over the world, and we're going to take our time. And the way that you know that we mean this, and this is really going to happen, is that all of the decentralized people are going to go back and retrofit all of the decisions that were taken. We're just going to have to guess what people want. But we have a very good way of guessing. That's the power transition model that is 90 to 95% accurate. So again, what we're doing now is we're representing humanity. We have ways of guessing what it is that humanity would want to do. And we're going to go very slow. We're just going to be replacing the banking cartel's paper money and getting rid of the corruption. And this is not that difficult to do. I was speaking to some representatives of one of the countries, and we were talking about what the various steps are that have to happen. The mints in the countries are going to be minting paper first. This is going to be a certificate, and this interim step is going to end up being replaced by the world's gold. So the gold is going to be in the form of, it's called aurum. It's like a plastic envelope, and inside that envelope there's going to be gold pressed very, very thin, and the gold is going to be worth the value of the face amount of the bill. And that's going to erase the corruption. If you've been following what I've been telling you, all of the income taxes are all going to the bankers. This was already studied by a Grace Commission that Ronald Reagan asked for, and you can see how this happens. So this is world corruption, and the paper money system. We're just cutting off the money that's flowing to the banking cartel. And the banking cartel is very real. There was a group of mathematicians and systems analysts in 2012 that showed that this group exists. And you know this group. You see them, all of the mainstream media that's owned by this group. And they're telling you lies. That's not reality what they're telling you. For instance, and I'll be talking about this in the next segment, which is being pre-taped after this segment. For instance, Donald Trump, he's not the real president of the United States because the Constitution of the United States was not in effect. So there was no electoral college. He's just play acting. And the governments are all corrupt. We're going to be ending that corruption by all cooperating. And what I've said is that we're going to have a dialogue, and that dialogue is going to be outside of the banking cartel. And the banking cartel is very upset about this, and they're trying to horn in. But it's not that hard, actually, to figure out who's sincerely, who's for real, and who's banking cartel. And when you get into a small group and you decentralize and you work together with the people in your community, you're going to find out pretty easily who's standing in the way, who's trying to prevent you from working. And we're all going to be doing this simultaneously. And it's never been done before. It's going to take us quite some time because the corruption is really very, very deep. One of the things that I tweeted a few days ago was that I started out believing what I saw, that all of the universities and all of the governments were for real. And it took me a long time to find out just how deep the corruption is. It was like going up in an elevator. I would do something that made me think that I had tackled the corruption, and lo and behold, it didn't work. So, for example, I went to the U.S. Congress, and then it was only much later that I found out that all of the members of Congress have been bought out. It's very simple for the banking cartel to do this. They print paper money, and then they use that paper money to pay off the politicians. So just about every single politician is part of this corruption. In the courts, the judges are also part of this corruption. So we're going to have to clean out the corruption from the grassroots up, and the way that we'll do it is just working from the grassroots up and not working with any of the existing organizations. So, for example, I'm a lawyer, right? So I went to the American Civil Liberties Union. I figured this would be a good group to try to get to fight the corruption. Well, guess what? They're not for real. They're part of the banking cartel as well. And all of the issues that you see about handguns, we have handguns because that was part of what the Founding Fathers understood. They wanted people to be able to defend themselves against a standing army that wasn't going to be for the people. And so all of these issues that you see about guns and shootings, these are to try to disarm the people. Well, the people happen to be armed, and also the U.S. military. Most of them understand that the honchos are really part of the banking cartel. They're traitors. And the chances that we do actually end this corruption are greater than 90%. Because I know this from a model that came to me in the World Bank from the National War College. And that's the reason why I'm sitting before you right now, because there are coalitions that are much stronger than the banking cartel, and I'm speaking for them. Now let me look at my notes to see what else I wanted to talk about. Oh, I also wanted to talk about the extremely low frequency. This is military technology that is very powerful. It's like hypnotizing you. And the reason why you need to work together with a group is in order to fight that technology. It'll tell you when you're not acting like you normally do. The banking cartel is hiding the reality that we're united in fighting them and their lies. They're only deluding themselves because this truth is hard for them to accept. Time is on our side, and sooner or later, they're going to have to accept that we know the banking cartel exists and is lying to us.